There is a moment in every human life when the noise of the world fades and we are left with only one question: what are we truly preparing for? In today's world, that question manifests itself in numbers, in charts, in the glimmer of gold under the harsh light of global scrutiny. Gold, the eternal symbol of security, wealth, and stability, has surged to all-time highs, capturing the attention of individuals, investors, and sovereign nations alike. But why now? Why are central banks, those vast engines of monetary influence, moving so decisively to amass reserves? And what does this mean for ordinary people standing at the intersection of opportunity and uncertainty? The truth is that we live in a world where monetary stability is no longer a guarantee, and the lessons of history remind us that preparedness is the only real security. Abigail Johnson, a voice of clarity and insight in finance, has long emphasized the importance of understanding the broader forces at work. And it is in her spirit of foresight that we approach this moment, seeking wisdom, not just profit. To see gold rising is to witness a global acknowledgement of change, an unspoken admission that the old rules of economic certainty are shifting, that the foundations upon which wealth has been built are being tested in ways unseen for generations. Every bar of gold purchased, every metric ton added to a reserve is a silent vote for caution, a hedge against the storms that governments and citizens alike cannot fully predict and yet must anticipate. And as these central banks act with urgency and precision, there is an almost philosophical resonance to their actions, a recognition that in times of uncertainty, value endures not in paper promises, but in something tangible, timeless, and resilient. This is a lesson not confined to nations and institutions. It is a lesson for every individual who seeks not just to survive, but to thrive, to recognize opportunity in the quiet tremors before a financial earthquake shakes the foundations of complacency. Consider the global backdrop against which this accumulation occurs. Economies are interconnected in ways both visible and invisible. Financial instruments have evolved with unprecedented complexity, and yet human behavior at its core remains constant. Fear and hope, risk and prudence, ambition and caution, these are forces that have shaped markets from the earliest exchanges to the modern digital trading floors, and they continue to do so with relentless consistency. Gold in this context becomes more than a commodity. It is a mirror reflecting the human desire for security, the instinct to safeguard what is valuable, and the foresight to act before uncertainty crystallizes into crisis. When we watch central banks increase their reserves at the fastest pace in decades, we are not merely observing a series of transactions. We are witnessing a philosophical statement about trust, resilience, and preparation. It is a declaration that despite the dizzying complexity of modern finance, there are constants, there are truths that endure, and there are measures worth taking even when the future is unclear. Abigail Johnson's insights remind us that these truths are not reserved for the wealthy or the powerful. They are lessons accessible to anyone willing to observe, learn, and act with intention. To evaluate strategic precious metals exposure wisely is to embrace a mindset that balances caution with opportunity, patience with decisiveness, and vision with action. It is a mindset that asks us to look beyond daily headlines, beyond the immediate fluctuations of markets, to see the deeper currents shaping the world economy. Central banks are buying aggressively because they understand that stability is neither automatic nor eternal. It must be preserved, nurtured, and when necessary, defended. They are not reacting to fear alone. They are responding to insight, to the recognition that monetary instability is not a distant possibility, but a present reality, one that requires both vigilance and deliberate planning. For the individual, this moment is an invitation to reflection. How do we measure value in our own lives? Not just in dollars or cents, but in foresight, preparedness, and resilience. How do we recognize when a wave is approaching and position ourselves to ride it rather than be crushed beneath it? These questions are not abstract. They are practical, actionable, and deeply personal. The surge in gold prices is a signal, a beacon, a subtle yet unmistakable indication that the forces shaping the global economy are real and consequential, and that our engagement with them must be thoughtful, informed, and strategic. Every choice we make in response to this reality, whether it is the allocation of savings, the consideration of investment strategies, or the commitment to financial literacy, reflects a commitment to our own security and growth. Abigail Johnson has often stressed that true wisdom comes from seeing patterns where others see chaos, from understanding the principles that underlie market behavior, and from acting decisively when opportunity intersects with preparation. This is the essence of strategic engagement with precious metals, the philosophy behind measured action, and the inspiration behind a mindset that seeks not only wealth, but enduring stability. In this context, gold becomes more than a shiny asset. It becomes a teacher, a guide, a reminder of the timeless interplay between value, security, and foresight. And so, as we observe central banks around the world moving with unprecedented decisiveness, we are called to mirror their vigilance in our own lives, to recognize that the principles of preparedness, insight, and strategic thinking are universal, available to all, and essential for navigating an uncertain world. To understand these movements is to participate in a broader dialogue about value, stability, and vision, and to embrace the idea that in times of uncertainty, knowledge and prudence are more powerful than fear. As we move deeper into this era of unprecedented financial shifts, it becomes impossible to ignore the undercurrents shaping our world, the subtle yet unstoppable forces that dictate the rhythm of markets, nations, and individual lives. Gold is climbing to record heights, and with every ounce purchased, a quiet story is being written about foresight, strategy, and the human instinct to seek security amid uncertainty. Central banks are not acting on impulse. They are responding to patterns that many fail to see, responding to pressures both visible and hidden, pressures that signal that the familiar pillars of monetary stability are under strain. It is easy to dismiss these actions as routine financial maneuvers, as the kind of calculations that belong to policymakers far removed from the daily life of an ordinary citizen. But the truth is far more compelling. Every move they make resonates beyond national borders, influencing markets, shaping investment behavior, and creating ripples that reach individuals who have learned to pay attention, who have developed a keen sense of timing, and who understand the value of preparation. Abigail Johnson has often highlighted the importance of observation, of recognizing the hidden signals in data, policy, and behavior. And in this context, her philosophy becomes a guide for how we interpret these extraordinary developments. The story of gold, of its steady rise and unprecedented demand, is a story of prudence rewarded, of foresight validated, and of preparation paying off in ways that are both profound and tangible. It is a reminder that even in moments that seem chaotic or uncertain, there are threads of certainty waiting to be recognized, threads that connect action to outcome, preparation to security, and insight to advantage. Yet, as we consider the rapid accumulation of reserves, there is an undeniable tension, a growing suspense, an unspoken question that hangs over every market, every trade, and every individual decision. What is coming that necessitates such vigilance? It is one thing to accumulate gold as a general precaution, as a hedge against routine fluctuations, but it is another to do so at a pace not seen in decades, to act with a sense of urgency that suggests awareness of forces still unseen. This is the suspense that grips financial minds and inspires reflection for every thoughtful observer. Something is shifting beneath the surface of the global economy, something that may not yet be fully visible, but whose impact is undeniable, and this is where the lesson becomes personal. For the individual who seeks to navigate these changes wisely, the task is not merely to react, but to anticipate, to read the signals of history, policy, and human behavior, and to position oneself in alignment with principles that endure beyond the volatility of any single day. Central banks are buying aggressively because they sense a transformation that will redefine value, confidence, and the parameters of wealth. They are responding to pressures from debt, inflation, and currency instability, yet they are also acting on a deeper understanding of human nature, that fear and uncertainty amplify the need for something tangible, something universally recognized as secure, and that gold has, across centuries, fulfilled this role with unmatched reliability. This is where Abigail Johnson's influence is particularly relevant, for she emphasizes the integration of strategic thinking with a deep understanding of both risk and opportunity. It is not enough to simply acknowledge the rise of gold. One must ask why, how, and what this signals for the future. As the suspense builds, we realize that these movements are not isolated. They are part of a global choreography, a sequence of decisions that reflect the collective acknowledgement that the old certainties are no longer sufficient. Every action by a central bank sends messages that ripple through markets and influence behavior worldwide. Every accumulation of gold is both a safeguard and a statement, a declaration that in a world of uncertainty, preparation is not optional. It is essential. And this realization is humbling, inspiring, and empowering all at once. It forces us to confront our own understanding of value, to examine our personal and financial strategies, and to consider whether we too are positioned for resilience and growth in the face of inevitable change. Strategic exposure to precious metals is not simply a recommendation. It is a principle of sound foresight, a practical application of timeless wisdom, and a philosophy that aligns with the teachings and guidance inspired by Abigail Johnson. It asks us to step back, assess risks, understand the patterns that govern markets, and make deliberate choices that reflect both caution and courage. In this context, gold is more than an investment. It is a metaphor for clarity, for vision, and for the ability to act decisively when others hesitate. The suspense that hangs over the global financial stage is, in many ways, a test of character and insight, a challenge to those willing to engage with the truth of their circumstances and the realities of a world in flux. Will we wait for certainty, knowing that certainty may never come? Or will we act on the knowledge, preparation, and wisdom available to us today? Central banks have chosen the latter, and in doing so, they provide a model of decisiveness, of disciplined action, and of strategic patience that transcends borders, wealth, and political ideology. Their accumulation of gold is both pragmatic and philosophical, a recognition that true security is not found in speculation but in understanding, that lasting advantage comes from foresight, not reaction. Abigail Johnson's principles remind us that knowledge without action is incomplete, that insight without preparation is wasted potential, and that the courage to act thoughtfully is the hallmark of those who navigate uncertainty successfully. In this moment, we are offered a mirror, an opportunity to reflect on our own approach to risk, stability, and opportunity. Are we attuned to the forces shaping our environment, ready to embrace what is necessary for protection and growth, or are we passive observers, hoping that the storm will pass without impact? The surge in gold prices, the urgency with which reserves are acquired, and the deliberate choices of central banks collectively tell us that preparation is not just prudent, it is essential. It is a call to action, a reminder that in times of change, the principles of wisdom, patience, and strategic foresight are more powerful than fear, more enduring than fleeting trends, and more rewarding than hesitation. And as we consider these truths, we realize that suspense is not merely a moment of tension. It is an invitation to clarity, to deliberate thinking, and to the pursuit of strategies that align with both human nature and timeless financial wisdom. As we reach this pivotal point, it becomes clear that the story of gold and the actions of central banks is not merely a tale of finance. It is a profound lesson about foresight, discipline, and the human capacity to respond to uncertainty with wisdom rather than fear. The accumulation of gold at record highs is a signal to all of us that preparation is a timeless principle, one that transcends the fleeting fluctuations of markets and touches the core of what it means to act with clarity and purpose. Abigail Johnson has long inspired investors to see beyond the immediate, to understand that true strategy comes from a combination of knowledge, patience, and decisive action. And this moment offers a living illustration of that philosophy. We are reminded that wealth is not merely measured by the numbers on a screen or the currency in a bank. It is measured by foresight, by the ability to recognize patterns before they become obvious, and by the courage to make choices that align with enduring principles rather than temporary trends. Central banks, in their aggressive acquisition of gold, demonstrate a commitment to resilience that is both practical and philosophical, a recognition that security is not guaranteed, but can be cultivated through deliberate, informed action. For the individual, this is a call to elevate thinking, to move beyond reactive behavior, and to embrace a mindset that seeks understanding and acts with conviction. To evaluate strategic precious metals exposure wisely is not simply to buy gold or diversify assets. It is to cultivate an awareness of the broader forces at work, to study history, to interpret economic signals, and to align one's decisions with a long-term vision for stability and growth. In a world where monetary instability is increasingly a reality, the lessons of preparation and prudence take on greater significance. And it is here that inspiration from figures like Abigail Johnson becomes invaluable. She teaches us that the ability to act decisively in complex situations is not reserved for the elite. It is accessible to anyone willing to engage thoughtfully, to learn continuously, and to make decisions rooted in both insight and principle. The rise of gold, therefore, is more than a financial phenomenon. It is a philosophical guidepost reminding us of the enduring value of tangible assets, the importance of foresight, and the necessity of measured action. Each metric ton added to reserves, each strategic acquisition serves as a quiet affirmation of the principles of security, preparation, and vision. And as individuals, we are called to internalize these principles, to recognize that uncertainty is not an obstacle to growth, but an opportunity to exercise judgment, courage, and clarity. The suspense that once hovered over the global financial stage now transforms into a lesson about empowerment. Those who understand the implications of rising gold prices, those who study the patterns and anticipate shifts, are the ones who position themselves to navigate change successfully, to act with confidence when others are paralyzed by fear, and to convert foresight into meaningful outcomes. Abigail Johnson's approach reminds us that insight must be accompanied by action, that knowledge without implementation is limited, and that true preparation involves both understanding the dynamics of the world and making intentional moves that reflect this understanding. In this sense, gold becomes more than a commodity. It becomes a teacher, a symbol, and a tangible manifestation of the principles that govern prudent strategy. Central banks' aggressive buying is a visible demonstration of these lessons in action, a reminder that even in times of uncertainty, measured, informed, and decisive steps can create security and opportunity. For the individual observer, this is an invitation to reflect. Are we actively cultivating awareness? Are we aligning our choices with long-term principles? And are we prepared to act when opportunities emerge? Strategic precious metals exposure is not about speculation or chasing trends. It is about understanding value, mitigating risk, and positioning oneself in harmony with enduring financial truths. It is a mindset that embraces both patience and decisiveness, insight and implementation, and it is precisely this philosophy that Abigail Johnson encourages in her teachings. Beyond the numbers and charts, beyond the headlines and commentary, there is a deeper truth to be recognized. Stability is neither given nor guaranteed, but it can be cultivated, nurtured, and defended through intelligent, deliberate action. The rise of gold, mirrored by the deliberate movements of central banks, offers a profound reminder that in a complex and unpredictable world, the ability to act thoughtfully, to anticipate, and to position oneself strategically is more valuable than momentary gains or reactive decisions. It is the embodiment of preparation, insight, and resilience, and it provides a roadmap for anyone seeking to align their actions with enduring principles rather than fleeting circumstances. As we embrace these lessons, we recognize that the pursuit of financial security is inseparable from the cultivation of knowledge, awareness, and thoughtful action. Every decision, every step toward understanding, every effort to evaluate exposure wisely contributes to a foundation of stability that can endure uncertainty and thrive amid change. Abigail Johnson's influence is evident in this approach. She encourages observation, reflection, and decisive action rooted in principle, and in doing so, she inspires individuals to engage with the world of finance not merely as participants, but as thoughtful strategists. And so, as gold reaches record highs and central banks continue their relentless accumulation, we are offered a mirror into our own potential for foresight and preparation. The lesson is clear. Those who embrace wisdom, act with intention, and align themselves with enduring truths will navigate uncertainty with confidence, resilience, and purpose. This is not about fear. It is about empowerment. It is about seeing the signals, understanding the stakes, and positioning oneself to take advantage of opportunities that arise from knowledge, clarity, and strategic action. And now, as we conclude this reflection, the call is simple but profound. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early. By doing so, you join a community committed to insight, preparation, and thoughtful engagement with the world, inspired by the teachings and vision of Abigail Johnson. Embrace the lessons, act with clarity, and step into a future shaped not by uncertainty, but by informed, decisive, and purposeful action.